This is the 2022 Mayor's State of the City, presented by Paige Granum. The mayor and the staff at the city and the city council members have been fantastic partners for the Greater Columbus Chamber of Commerce in the work we do, especially through COVID and as we emerge from it. We're trying to work really hard to engage small businesses and other businesses as well. But again, the city has been a fantastic partner in doing that. So it is our absolute pleasure and honor to be able to put this event on today. We also want to say hello to everyone who's tuned in to this event on CCG TV. The Columbus Chamber is proud to host this annual event, which is made possible by our generous sponsorship support. The 2022 Mayor's State of the City is presented by, again, Paige Granum, with gold level support from AT&T, Georgia Power, and TSYS, a global payments company. Supporting this great event at the silver level are Kinetic Credit Union, Liberty Utilities, and Outfront Media. We'd also like to thank our cornerstone partners, Aflac, Anthem, Georgia Power, iHeartMedia, the Pizzold Companies, Piedmont Columbus Regional, PNB Broadcasting, Pratt & Whitney, Synovus, again, TSYS, a global payments company, W.C. Bradley, and WRBL News 3. Our cornerstone investors are essential to all the Chamber's annual efforts, and we appreciate their ongoing support, as well as our work in economic growth, workforce development, community vibrance, inclusion, innovation, and entrepreneurism. Again, those are lots of things that we engage in, and we couldn't do it without the support of the people in this room. We would also like to welcome all of our elected officials. If you're an elected official, if you would please stand or raise your hand if you're able. Thank you. Thank you so much for all you do to keep our community moving forward. Again, thank you for your service and commitment. I'd like to introduce somebody that's going to make a special introduction in just a moment. But it is my pleasure to introduce Carter P. Schondelmeyer. Meyer, I get it wrong every time. I think it's Mayor, Schondelmeyer. She said it doesn't matter. Carter is a native of Columbus and a litigation partner at Paige Granum, focusing on employment law. She has defended some of the area's largest private and governmental employers in a variety of matters, including discrimination, sexual harassment, wage, and hour claims. She has presented or represented the Columbus Consolidated Government for a number of years and has recently served as a member of its Charter Review Commission. Please welcome to the stage Carter Schondelmeyer.
All right. Good morning. All right, on behalf of Paige Granum, I want to thank the Chamber and Gerald for that introduction. That was way nice. For allowing us to continue as the presenting sponsor. On behalf of the firm, we really have appreciated the long history of our representation of the city, as well as with many of the private partners that help move Columbus forward. It is with great pleasure that I get to introduce Mayor Skip Henderson. He was born in Columbus, Georgia, and graduated from Columbus High School. As many of you know, he attended the University of Georgia, which makes him a very wise man, and also attended Columbus College. Skip was working in his father's real estate business and gained invaluable experience in our local market before he took on the role of team leader at Keller Williams. As son of an Army veteran, Mayor Henderson knows the value of our military to the Columbus area. He's raised 2 children here who are here today with his wife Karen, to whom he's been married for over 37 years. We are fortunate to have a mayor with extensive knowledge of our area and experience in our local government. Prior to being elected as mayor, Skip served as the post-10 city councilman for over 2 decades, including 9 years as the chair of the city's budget committee. He has continued to serve our community in many local organizations, including the March of Dimes, the Kiwanis Club, and the Better Business Bureau, just to mention a few. Skip and his wife Karen also serve on the Leadership Council for the American Cancer Society. Skip Henderson's commitment to improving the city of Columbus is unwavering. He's led us through the difficulties of a pandemic and provided necessary support for significant community developments, such as the recent establishment of the Mercer Medical School. His goal is to continue to move Columbus forward, using his perseverance, his passion, and his determination to serve our community and to devote the full-time attention that the role of mayor deserves. Please join me in welcoming the 70th Mayor of Columbus, the Honorable Skip Henderson.
Thank you, Carter, and thank Paige Cranham too for your willingness to sponsor this event, and thank you in addition to all the things you do throughout the community. I kid Carter when I see her around the office. I said, "Man, it's nice to see you, but you'll forgive me if I tell you I don't mind if I don't see you for a little while longer." But she does a tremendous job with her efforts with working within the city. The chamber obviously doesn't know how to hide me and some of my lack of talent in speaking, because I know we've done one of these just standing up here and giving you a speech, and that was okay, I guess. And then they said, well, let's do a conversational thing. Throw him a lifeline. So now we're going to try one that's sort of a hybrid. Actually, we're going to do the conversational piece, and I really like that from my perspective, because it gives me a chance to hear questions that are of particular interest to people in our business community. And it gives us an opportunity to be able to address those things head on and try to provide some input and some answers for you. But I am going to make a few short comments here, and then I'll welcome my friend up here to grill me, Rodney Close. Rodney is I can't think of anybody better to try to manage that heavy lift than carry me through this. But and I think he's a professional chair, because he's chair of the Waterworks and he's also chair of the chamber, and we're excited to be able to sit down with him for a little while. Good news and bad news on the same card. That's the good news. That's all my notes. So, you know, bad news is that if I lapse into campaign mode, this is 3 hours. So hopefully we won't do that. I want to use a little bit of this time to kind of recognize some people, or at least some groups of people, because I think if I try to remember everybody's name, I know I'm going to screw it up. But I do want to acknowledge the presence of some people that are important to me and that are important to this community. I'll start off with the top in my mind, and that is my family. I'm delighted that they are here. My sister, Susan Carter, and the folks at Paige Cranham are awesome lawyers. She's a pretty good one herself. So it's nice to have Susan here, and I also want to say how nice it is to have our children here. Carter alluded to that, and it's kind of tough to get them both together in the same place. Our daughter Kyle made the trip down late last night. She lives in Atlanta, lives and works in Atlanta. And our son, Joey, it's tough to get him anywhere because he's a first responder. He's actually one of my walking heroes because of what he provides to the citizens of Columbus every day. And his schedule usually keeps him from being here, so good to see him. And of course, the ringmaster of the Henderson Circus is Karen. She is absolutely my best friend and my confidant, and I seek her counsel in almost everything we do. It truly is a team effort, and I just want to thank them all for being here. Also want to thank my work family, my staff, Becca and Alexis, and my new chief of staff, Josh Beard. Want to welcome them here. Want you guys, most of you know Josh. He's been in the military. He's retired military, and he worked with the chamber for a while, and we are really excited to have him on board because it kind of fits so well into some of the focus that we have going forward in our office. I think that Gerald mentioned some of the elected officials. I just want to say very briefly, particularly over the last 3 years while we were dealing with this pandemic, I can't overstate how important it was for our elected officials to be boots on the ground and trying to find out what we needed as a community, talking with our staff, talking with the local elected officials. So our new senators hit the ground running, and they did a fantastic job of reaching out to us and asking what we needed in terms of federal funding and some of the other initiatives that they were pushing forward. Our congressman did an awesome job. Sanford Bishop and Drew Ferguson both did, actually they came together to help us with a major life safety issue that we were dealing with Ralston Towers. And that outcome absolutely doesn't happen if it wasn't for the input of both of those gentlemen. Also want to make sure we mention our local delegation. I tell you, they're legendary up around Atlanta. They carry their lunch pail up there loaded with stuff that we ask them to take care of, and they deliver time after time. It's so refreshing in an age like we're in now, where people sometimes have difficulty finding that middle ground and finding a way to kind of work things out and build consensus. Our delegation typically is known around Atlanta for speaking with one voice. Even if they don't agree 100% with everything that the delegation votes to carry forward, they fight the fight right shoulder to shoulder with those that do believe in those things. So want to thank them for their efforts. And here on the ground, boots on the ground, speaking of that, is our council. Over the last 3 years through this pandemic, our city council has, I'm telling you, they have stepped up and done everything that we needed them to do and everything we've asked for, and many things we haven't. It was not a one-man show. Going through this pandemic and making these decisions, we knew we had the support of council. They have never turned us down for anything we asked them for when it comes to public safety. So I just want to give them credit. In fact, if the councilors that are here, if you would stand, because local government is so important. It's the very essence of what we do as a country. Give them a hand, please. And then I also want to mention our staff, the city staff, the employees of the Columbus Consolidated Government. As I'm sure we'll talk about as we move on, you may have noticed a little bit of a labor challenge. Well, it's certainly, we certainly aren't immune from that, and it's hit the government. It's hit us hard. But the individuals that work for the Consolidated Government, led by our city manager, Isaiah Hughley, they do not quit. They're going to make sure that whatever they have to do to get the services delivered to the citizens is done. Now, we had some delivery challenges, and I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to discuss that in a little bit, but the job got done. Sometimes it was a day or two later and we wanted it to, but the job got done, and that was better than what a lot of cities throughout Georgia and around the Southeast can say. So I just want to lift up them as well. Another partner that we depend heavily on is Fort Benning. My dad is still the coolest retired Army aviator I've ever met at almost 90 years old, and that does help. Karen is the daughter of an Army veteran, and it does help us understand and have a special appreciation for what soldiers and veterans mean to our community and to our country. I got to say this, though, I've had the rare privilege of watching two commanding generals lead during a pandemic, and to watch the way they handled fulfilling the mission of one of the largest training facilities in the United States Army, where they were shipping in about 300 new recruits every couple of months from all corners of the country, and having a petri dish of COVID that they had to deal with, and still delivering on that mission. They demonstrated as strong a leadership capability as I've ever seen. So to General Donahoe, I want to thank him. I know he's not here today, but he has done a yeoman's job in trying to get through that. I also want to thank some other folks by way of touting what they do for our city. I want to thank the chairs and the members of some of the mayor's commissions. We have commissions that help us move the ball down the field in a lot of different areas, some areas that aren't typically handled by staff or by the elected officials. We've got a Mayor's Commission on Unity, Diversity, and Prosperity. They were tested during the summer of 2020 when we had the social unrest, and they sprang to action, and they helped us create opportunities for conversation, and the way this community did what they always do, and that's come together. We managed to work our way through that, and we are still having some of those conversations, which is healthy. Also want to thank the Mayor's Commission on Reentry. Councilor House was a key driver behind that. This is such a critical piece in our community that helps us tackle some of the crime issues we're having. Because it gives people who are released from prison an opportunity to learn a skill, get a place to live, and then re-enter back into the community instead of going back into the old neighborhoods doing the same old stuff. We also want to thank the Mayor's Commission on Persons with Disability, because during this pandemic, and even during the labor shortage, we still struggle with some providing services to the same level we did, like Metro. Well, that severely impacts people who have mobility issues, because if it's not for the public transportation system, they can't get to work, they can't get to the grocery store. So it impacts their lives. And by them taking an active role in advocating and trying to communicate what their needs were, they've done an incredible job as well. So we have so many things to be thankful for in this community. And I'm really excited about Rodney coming up here and grilling me a little bit. But I really am looking forward to it. Lastly, let me say this. I want to thank you. I want to thank the business community, the faith leaders, the people that are retired and are just leading a family. Because anybody who is in a leadership position, which frankly in my mind means anybody walking the streets of Columbus, Georgia, during the last 3 years did an incredible job. The way we came through this pandemic, and frankly, the pandemic's still here. We just are in a different variation of it at this point, and we're preparing for whatever eventuality comes in the future. But the folks that were leading a family, leading a business, leading a church, the way they pulled together to try to help one another is absolutely amazing. It's what got us through this as well as we did from a financial aspect. And we've got some really, really good news, I think, for 2021, and we'll get to that. So the last thing I'll say before I invite Rodney to the stage is we'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. The state of Columbus, Georgia is very good, very good. We have challenges. We've got some things that we're still wrestling with, some as a direct result of the pandemic, some are just things that were on that path for the past 10 years and just during the pandemic tended to manifest themselves. But our economy is good, our business sector is good. We're seeing new capital investment every day. And we're seeing, and the thing that's really exciting, the spirit of entrepreneurialism in Columbus, Georgia is just off the charts. We're seeing more and more small business open, and the really exciting piece is we're seeing fewer go out of business. And that's directly due to the impact that the Chamber has had. One last thing before I call Rodney. I meant to thank the Chamber, not just for hosting this and not just for putting this together so we could get together, but a lot of folks we tend to forget that the Chamber was without a president for about a year. And it was well worth the wait, because getting Gerald in here, I think, has been one of the greatest things that we've seen happen in this community in a long time. But the way the Chamber focused on small business, they continue to focus on landing those big businesses. We know that. But the way they repositioned themselves to focus on small business and make sure that the structure and the support was there that they needed. And then when the city came through with doing some things like delaying occupational taxes, being flexible with some of our zoning and trying to work through some ordinances to make it possible for some of this development, it helped keep these people in business. It's still helping keep these people in business. And that's our objective, is to try to make sure that those folks are able to build their future in the manner in which they want to do so. So listen, thank you for letting me take a few minutes just to kind of thank some folks. And now I'm going to invite Rodney up.
So as we engage in this dialogue over the next 20 minutes or so, I'll lead you through a series of questions provided by the business community that will cover a broad range of topics and impact our city. So okay. First, I would like to start off with you by considering what are the major accomplishments for the city over the past year or so in your perspective?
Wow. You know, actually I think given the circumstances that we were dealing with, I mean, 2021, it's hard to believe it because it seems 100 years ago, but we were trying to figure out how to get vaccinations to people so that they were accessible, right? We were trying to get them to some folks that had some transportation issues. We were setting up vaccinations in our fire stations, doing drive-throughs. We were setting them up in in parking lots at Walmart, and struggling to try to make sure we were getting enough access to people. But the fact that we were doing that and we still were able to continue the momentum that we had with capital investment, that we had with, I mean, during a pandemic, we had construction going on, still building hotels, building a medical school, Riverfront Place, right there, that I think it's about $184 million investment. Right. And then going up north a little bit, we had revisioning what public housing looked like. Chase Homes was under construction. The Second Avenue corridor, as you go up, we had some champions there that were revitalizing that area. And we were also seeing new areas being developed. We were seeing an 88-acre development in Midland Crossing. And in South Columbus, we had some major capital investments in infrastructure. I think over the last 10 years, it's been about $250 million that has gone into street alignment, access from the interstate, trying to create an environment where it was more accessible, where businesses would want to locate so that it was now opened up and people could access those areas. But it was all, in addition, I mentioned a little bit ago the small business environment. The fact that we had a modest growth in 21 of businesses that were opening, probably 6% more than we'd had the last 6 years. But the really neat thing was during this COVID year, we had 20% less businesses going out of business. Yeah. So in my mind, everybody pulling together and able to handle the medical challenge while still keeping the momentum of our business community and reaching out to individuals that were in a socioeconomic level that needed assistance in providing that. I mean, those are the things that I'm really most proud of.
Good, good. Let's move on to public safety.
Let's do.
And I'll be honest, you know, this is not just here in Columbus, but we're focused today in Columbus, but it's really across the country, our nation, and which is something that is on the minds of many citizens of Columbus and in the area. So what are your thoughts on the impact of violent crime having on attracting talent and new businesses to the Columbus community?
Well, you know, I think it absolutely has an impact. I mean, I've heard anecdotal evidence from some of our community leaders that they've had an opportunity to hire somebody and they Google and they get on a site that says inflammatory things and they end up losing that particular prospect. And the government's responsibility is try to do what we can to, in my opinion, to do what we can to enhance the quality of life. And certainly the safety of the residents is paramount to that quality of life. And we do have a lot of initiatives underway. We've our police chief and our sheriff working hand in hand. We collaborate with partners from the state. I have been on the phone with the governor talking about his gang task force. I've met with the Attorney General and talked about a circuit-wide effort to try to share information and make sure that everybody's on the same page with regards to prosecuting any kind of gang activity. So we're leveraging those as well. The encouraging thing is, though, just in the last 18 months, I have seen more young people coming back to Columbus. I mean, used to, the saying was that everybody would get to about 18 years old in Columbus and then they're looking for a place to go. And not talking about my daughter living in Atlanta. We want her home, but we're working on that. But we have seen a lot. I've talked with probably a dozen young people under the age of course, at my age, that's under the age of 50, but under the age of about 35. And some are being lured here by Mercer Medical, but others are just moving to Columbus, Georgia because of what they have heard about it. So we have to continue to focus, and you hit the nail on the head. It is our #1 issue. It's the thing that first thing I think of when I wake up, and last thing before I go to bed. And we're working on it. We are seeing some incremental successes, but we know we've got a lot of work to do.
Sure. You know, I will say this here, in many major cities, Atlanta, major, big communities, you don't really find the police department and the sheriff department really working together. That's something that was a big plus for us here because of, you know, the sheriff and the police chief, so that's a big bonus for us.
Yeah.
Let me lead right into, is there a comprehensive plan to lower the violent crime that we see in our community?
There is. Actually, we have to approach it from a couple of different directions. One is the enforcement. Enforcement's key. Right now, we've got gangs out there. We've got a lot of gangs in this city. That's the bad news. Yeah. The sort of good news is that most of them are fairly loosely organized. Gotcha. There are some of the major ones that you hear about that are still in our streets. And everybody in here, well, not everybody, but I imagine a lot of you have seen the video that was going around showing these young men carrying long weapons that were walking underneath street signs that are right here in Columbus, Georgia. So enforcement is key, and we have been since I've been in office, we've put more money towards police. Yeah. It's not where we need to be, but we are on the right path. We have council has done an amazing job of supporting everything we've asked for public safety. Council approved an $8.5 million spend on extremely high resolution and high tech cameras. Cameras are not going to arrest people, but cameras help us make those cases. So one of the challenges our law enforcement officials have is when they catch somebody, it could be in a party full of people, 25 people, and miraculously nobody saw anything. So the cameras give us an opportunity to make solid cases and get them adjudicated and prosecuted and get them in jail. That is not a 100% foolproof deterrent to crime, but it does deter some. And we've also seen in other communities that we've talked with how having a dedicated prosecutor for gangs tends to strike a little bit of a chord within these young men. They quit flashing the gang signs, and some of them will even back away from some of those things. So the enforcement side is in place. The other piece of that is prevention. And frankly, we have to be successful in the prevention. Because if all we do is catch people, put them through a trial, prosecute them, and lock them up, all we're going to do is build bigger jails. So we have been given about $750,000 a year to organizations that apply for grants that are specifically designed to prevent crime. We have an outstanding board that vets each one of those requests that comes in. We also are entering an agreement with, or have entered an agreement with Cure Violence. Now, Cure Violence, I want to be clear, Cure Violence is not the answer. I mean, a lot of folks started saying Cure Violence is the answer. I know Cedric and Reggie are here. Cure Violence is absolutely a part of the answer. And
that is one of my questions I have later.
Well, we're excited about what they are going to be able to do. But that's our strategy right now, is to hit from both those sides, the enforcement and the prevention.
And I think you maybe have answered my this question here. What are the specific strategies that the administration recently has employed to fight crime? I think we talked about that a little bit. But if you want to add a little bit more to that, feel free to.
Yeah, you know, I think it comes down to collaboration. We do bring in, for a good example, periodically, we don't say when, we'll bring in the Georgia State Patrol. And that gives us anywhere from 20 to 40 more officers on the street. They bring a helicopter in, and it allows some of our people to put together special ops and go into some of these hot spots. The Sheriff's Department has a gang task force. The Police Department has a gang intelligence unit, and the gang intelligence unit is charged just like they do in the military. They gather intelligence on these individuals. So they know who most of these young men are, and young women, by the way. So once they identify them, they can turn that over to the crime suppression team, and they have real-time reaction to anything that's going on. So we're making headway. The sheriff, I know, has arrested on warrants a handful of these gang members. Police department have also done the same. But it's getting more dangerous for our law enforcement. I mean, everybody's aware of the sheriff's deputy that was fired upon and was wounded. And the collaboration between the two departments was really highlighted that day because it was the police department that identified and arrested the 2 people that were involved in that, and they're putting together a case that's going to keep them away from folks for a long time.
You know, I did recall seeing the sting between the local sheriff, state troopers, and the local police department. Really, you know, laser focused on a lot what you mentioned, and a lot of arrests were made. I mean, are we going to continue to try to look at that?
Absolutely. You'll see that more often. We again, it's randomly done, and we don't share when it's going to happen. But typically, and a lot of folks have said, well, the GSP writes a lot of traffic tickets. Well, they do. Okay. But we frequently get an opportunity to identify drugs or guns in the car through a traffic stop. We use tag readers. Tag readers are affixed to the vehicle, and they will capture every tag that goes by, and they'll get a hit if it's a stolen vehicle or if there's some type of outstanding warrant on that owner of that car. So yeah, there's a number of different things that they're doing that are more covert that we don't share. But make no mistake, they respond to 911 calls, and they proactively patrol the city to try to shut down some of these folks doing this stuff.
Okay. Okay, next question. Are there public safety hiring challenges that are slowing progress towards crime reduction?
Yeah, you know, again, as you mentioned earlier, it's a nationwide deal, and I don't want to sound callous, but I don't care. We're focused on Columbus, Georgia.
Absolutely.
And so we have put strategies in place to try to mitigate some of those hiring challenges. But nationally, the International Association of the Chiefs of Police did a survey, and they identified some of the things that are creating challenges to retaining and recruiting. And we face some of those same challenges. You know, the defund police movement, the lack of respect in certain areas for police, the fact that kids 16 years old, when you pull them over, they come out of the car with a video instead of their wallet and trying to give you their license. But here locally, we actually had an additional challenge that really created a problem for retention and recruiting. And we had a DA that came in and eliminated almost every experienced assistant DA that was employed, and then made very public statements about going after police officers. So we've had a retention challenge. Now the chief has created a retention committee that is designed to get honest feedback. Some of it is the kind of feedback you wish you didn't have to listen to, but it's necessary for identifying ways to improve the department so that we increase the retention. We've also beefed up a cadet program. And we've seen this work with our fire and emergency medical services, where they go into the high schools. This year we had 2 high schools that they were working in, and they've spoken, I think, with the administration, with MCSD, and by next year we'll have another 3 or 4 high schools that we're working within. And what we do is we hire right out of high school, 18 years old, 19 years old, $30,000 we'll pay them to come be a cadet. Now we don't give them a gun, and we tell them not to enforce the law. But what they can do is they can put on a body cam, and they can have a radio, and they can kind of walk up and down some of our business districts and be a deterrent just from having the uniform on. If they see anything, they can call it in. So between that and trying to also make the financial package a little closer to where it needs to be, we've been working on both the recruiting piece and the retention. And I'll be clear, we get calls sometimes, people say, I saw a billboard. Gwinnett Police are coming in.
I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, I get asked. I kind of anticipate that.
But I guess they're just on our turf, right?
That's right.
And the other on their turf and bring them down here.
And that's the point. We're doing nationwide recruiting. I will also add, we've been meeting since August of last year with some community leaders who have expressed an interest in trying to help Columbus in whatever way they can to include providing resources. So we're also talking with them about a number of things, but one thing we've talked about is a professional recruiting organization that deals strictly with police and law enforcement. So there are a lot of initiatives that are going to try to address that particular issue. So
do you think money is the issue?
You know, money's not the only issue, but absolutely it is. I mean, you know, our officers right now, when we hire a police officer, that has a high school education. And when we bring them in, they start off at about just under $45,000, which is much better than it was even just 5 years ago. But I mean, for what they do, it's just not enough. Yeah. So we have a pay plan, pay study that we implemented, and we appreciate the Chamber's help with that. The Chamber helped guide us through that. And the idea is to try to get to get somebody to help us be more competitive in the workforce. In addition, it's also to take care of some compression that we've really uncovered in the law enforcement areas, so that the morale's a little better. We have had sergeants supervising corporals who are making more than sergeants. But yeah, so we've already set aside $10 million to fund that, so that when the pay plan is completed, we hope it'll be completed maybe as early as fourth quarter, but certainly no later than the first of the year.
So that'd be pretty competitive there.
We're hoping so.
Council's behind it?
Council has never not been behind an initiative for public safety, and to the point where I look forward to bringing them any kind of information showing where we should be, and then trying to work out a path to getting there.
That's awesome. So how can the community get engaged? I mean, we have probably, I don't know, maybe 300 plus folks in this room. You know, if there's something that you could, you know, your wisdom, or not wisdom, your wisdom, yes, your wisdom, and things that you and, you know, the city manager sees, the police chief sees, and just really, how can we all, you know, share this load at some point in our own communities?
Yeah, you know, listen, we do get that question a lot, and I love getting it. And that's just what makes, one of the things that makes this community so special is that the citizens want to get involved. Yeah. I mean, whether it's capital campaigns, or whether it's working in philanthropic or charitable organizations, they're anxious to pony up. But the two things I would say right off the bat that they could do, one is for people that witness something like this, and if you think something might be a little askew, something's a little bit wrong, don't be shy about calling the police. Let them know. We've had we've had an uptick in motor vehicle thefts. Yeah. So if you see somebody that looks a little out of place walking around a parking lot, go ahead and call that in. The other thing I would say is that get involved. You know, go through the United Way, or check with Cure Violence, because one of the things that Cure Violence I think is really neat about doing is being a connector for a lot of different opportunities. They can tell you what is out there. If you're a person of faith, ask your church. I guarantee you your church has some program in mind that will have some kind of impact on crime. Because if you impact poverty, if you impact homelessness, if you impact any of these things, you're impacting crime.
So you touched on a little earlier Cure Violence, and I shared with you that was going to be one of my questions. So if there's an update, can you share kind of where things are there?
Yeah, I almost want to tell Cedric and Reggie to get up here and let them do it. But what I'll give you is just a very high-level update. We have signed an MOU with Cure Violence to help with the funding for the first 3 years. And the idea was that the city believed that this was important enough to invest in until it could get self-sufficient, until they could be generating grant revenue and some other philanthropic participation. They are housed in the Department of Public Health, which I think is a great synergistic move, because public health focuses on exactly what Cure Violence is focusing on, and that is stopping an epidemic by treating some of the symptoms while focusing on some of the root cause. They are in the process of hiring. They are working to put in place their community advocates. They're calling them, instead of interrupters, I think is what they called them in another location. But the idea for those individuals that they're hiring is to typically these are individuals that have been in prison, that have had some kind of affiliation with a gang, and can have some credibility and also know what they're talking about when they talk to current gang members. So one of the things they're after doing is cutting down on retaliatory crime. There's even I think they're even putting an office in one of the hospitals who, when there's a shooting, if that victim is in there and anybody else shows up, they can try to diffuse that situation before it escalates. And then they're also doing some community events, because one of the things that I'm excited about, more so even than the interrupters or the community advocates, Cure Violence is holding themselves out to be a connector. We have so many incredible programs and so many opportunities for people to get involved, to get help, to get job skill training, to get GED, to get mentored, to get parent training. All that stuff is available. But knowing where they all are is a challenge. United Way does a great job with the 211, but there's still some that are outside of that scope. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about, personally excited about with Cure Violence, is that they're going to try to provide a methodology for them to be connected.
Good. Well, let's switch gears to jobs.
Okay.
There are currently about 7,500 jobs available at the top 100 companies in Columbus region, in addition to hundreds of additional jobs throughout the city in various businesses. Also, the unemployment rate in Columbus metro area is like 3.3%. I think the state's 3.1. We're not too far away from them.
We're better than we've been since pre-pandemic.
So, what are your thoughts on? So, what are your thoughts in regard to those items in your plan to support the businesses out in
Columbus? You know, the businesses are facing some of the same issues that the government is, and that is the challenge of trying to find workers and competing against other organizations that are paying up so much to get those workers that it makes it difficult to employ them. As I was saying earlier, to me, the job done by the chamber and by the consolidated government at trying to provide an atmosphere of sustainability for these small businesses was critical. You know, we actually met with Dr. Blair from CSU back in April of 2020, right when the pandemic, we had maybe 1 or 2 cases. And first thing I did was said, I know this is an impossible task, but I want you to come to my office and look in your crystal ball and give me a worst case, best case kind of deal. Because we felt it was critical, even at that early stage, to try to begin to anticipate what we were going to be dealing with. Because yes, we were worried about the pandemic affecting the health of our citizens, but we were also almost equally worried about what it was going to do to the business culture in Columbus and across the state. And so we tried to do some things from the government standpoint. We knew that most businesses have to pay all of their renewal fees first part of the year, so we deferred the payment of occupation tax to try to delay that. We participated in and helped form a small business roundtable. We put grant money out there. That we have seen more people launch a business. And we've seen them grow. We've seen them make that decision to kind of move forward. I think that the folks at the chamber did an outstanding job at kind of nurturing those individuals. So we just need to try to make sure that we're doing our part as a government, which we are, with job skill training and partnering with organizations that are of a like mind, going to help us get that done.
Question here, regarding to should we be concerned that the city government is operating with limited staffing? I mean, should we?
You probably don't have to, because Isaiah and I are worried enough for all of us. Yeah, I mean, it's a fact of life. You know, I gave you some numbers. We've seen we're 27 drivers short in our indigent waste needs. We're about 25 short in Metro. The one that got me was Parks and Rec, where a lot of young people love to work. Right? We're 176 short. There's 176 openings, and that's probably 1 or 2 more by now. But we have more open jobs than filled jobs at Parks and Recreation. Lifeguards for the pools, we used to pay, what, about $9 an hour? We're looking at probably paying $14 an hour for a kid out of high school to be a lifeguard, and we're going to have to do it. Again, we're hopeful that this pay study that we've implemented, and that should be done hopefully within the next several months, is going to show us where that competitive range is. But we're not kidding ourselves either. Most of you in this room know that Columbus has some constraints when it comes to generating additional revenues. So the 9 mil cap precludes us from increasing any kind of taxes. It always tickles me when I see people on social media say, all you do is raise taxes. Well, we can't raise taxes. Matter of fact, our tax rate has actually dropped over the last 3 years because of some good financial management from our staff. But we also know that we've got to be creative, and we've been in meetings, and I've heard the city manager challenge our HR director on multiple occasions, Retha Hollowell, who does a great job, but to think differently.
Yeah.
You know, we can't do the same things the same way and still be competitive to bring in people to help us. We are shifting our approach, for example, to garbage and yard waste. Everybody, most of you have received your new, ginormous bins that everybody's adjusting to. And right now, you're sort of test driving them to get used to them and try to give us feedback if there's any serious issues that we need to take into account before we switch over to full automated. But we learned during COVID that prison labor on the back of a truck is not sustainable and it's not dependable. Yeah. When the court shut down, we went from 500 plus inmates in the work camp down to below 200. So we had to move everybody to trash pickup only, which meant that the grass was growing on the right-of-ways. It meant that the yard waste was slow to be picked up. So we are currently, in this budget, we're spending about $4.8 million to contract again with a third-party contractor until the vehicles that we've ordered come in and until we can get our driver fleet ramped back up. So we're addressing it. Our commitment is that we are going to continue to deliver the services to the citizens. In yard waste in particular, we fell behind. And we're grateful for our residents allowing us to get caught up. But there'll be some changes in how we do that. They're by necessity. We have to make sure that we're providing the service because that's what people expect.
Thank you. So let's talk economic development and business attraction. So we've had some large wins over the last 3 years in these areas. So give me your thoughts.
Yeah, again, it goes back to the chamber, I think, focusing on trying to make sure they were a lifeline for small business. But having said that, I think I thought, man, this is going to be great because I hadn't even heard of a pandemic. We were two or 3 months into my term, and we had already seen Kaiser Warren move their North American headquarters and add 250 jobs. We saw a local homegrown company, Path Tech, that added 300 more jobs. I thought, this is going to be a breeze. And then the breeze blew in a germ or something, but anyway, we continue. And by the way, the fact that the Chamber and the Development Authority was able to continue to keep those communications open with the prospects we were working with 3 years ago is a testament to their stick-to-itiveness.
Gotcha.
But we did switch our focus, from a city's perspective, and the Chamber kind of did the same. Into small business, because we understood that, we hear it every time somebody talks about the backbone of our economy. Well, they really are. Yeah. And these are the folks that are hiring the people. These are the folks that are scratching out a living. These are the folks that are wondering how they're going to not only pay their employees, but how they're going to pay their bills. So I think we have done, well, look, the economic outlook that they brought in from the Selig Center, I think, warmed my heart to hear them point out that Columbus, Georgia, in their opinion, navigated this pandemic financially as well or better than any other city our size in Georgia. Gotcha. And I think that's a direct result, not of the city, not of the Chamber, but collectively of all the people that live in this community, because we continue to buy local, we continue to support those organizations, and we continue to look for ways to try to provide them some cover. So, I get a little excited about economic development. Sorry.
We're going to switch gears and talk about redevelopment opportunities. So the revitalization of Uptown has been truly amazing for Columbus. What is the vision to expand that type of redevelopment in other parts of the town?
Well, that's exactly what we hope to do. We intend to do. In fact, it's exactly what I think is happening already in certain pockets of Columbus. And I will say this, for those of you close to my age, you remember an Uptown that wasn't this Uptown. I mean, it was, you could throw a rock at high noon and not worry about hitting anybody except maybe a stray cat. But it has changed because of the vision of people in the private sector who said, why can't we? And then it was created in addition to that by people who were in elected offices that went, how can we not leverage the interest of these individuals to keep that going forward? Well, we're seeing the same thing happen in other areas. You know, I mentioned the 2nd Avenue corridor, the Mill District, and even going across with what NeighborWorks has done, trying to provide for quality, affordable housing. And it's the encouraging thing is you'll see a doctor in one of these areas. You'll see a single mother that is just moved out of maybe a Columbus housing area. So we're also seeing development. The Liberty, I think, is ripe for development. And we've talked about that so many times and trying to get the stakeholders involved. It's getting more traction. But on the periphery of the Liberty, both to the south with the farmers market and then the tank farm across the street, we have some incredible opportunities. Going a little bit north, where you've got mid-city yards, that is, who in the world thought I would have been so giddy about a dog park, right? But yeah, we take my wife's, I hate to say this in front of my children, she doesn't mind, my wife's favorite child that has 4 legs, we go to that location. It's awesome. You know, we've seen some development up off of Midland Commons. And we're seeing interest in South Columbus, and we're working very hard from a government standpoint to show any potential investors that we're investing in South Columbus, because we believe in the potential of that area. I know there's a T-Splosh that's going to be on the ballot soon, and not campaigning for it, but I'll point out that there's some significant improvements for all of our roads that are going to be listed on there. I would urge you at least to take a look at them and see what kind of projects are out there.
Yeah. So bureaucracy and red tape can be roadblocks to growth and development. Are there city ordinance or regulations that you think are unintentional slowing the growth and development for our community?
There's bureaucracy and red tape and
you better believe it.
Here's the deal. I don't know so much that it's ordinances. I think one of our challenges is we were decentralized. So one of the things that we're focusing on doing to try to make it easier is as we take ownership of our new city hall, which will be in the old Synovus building, we are going to bring all of those entities into one area. It's going to be like my daughter's from Atlanta, as I mentioned, like a Ponce market of licensing. So the idea is to have them all in one area to create that synergy so that people can, if they do have to go somewhere and get another piece of paper first, they only have to walk another 100 feet. But in addition to that, the city manager has pulled together some individuals from the private sector who frequent those types of city services and ask them, all right, how do we make it better? And if there are ordinances that need to be changed, he says all the time, as I do, that the world has shifted a little bit. And if we don't shift with it, we're going to be just left behind. So we're taking a long, hard look and asking the private sector to take a look and try to give us some input as far as what makes that a little easier to navigate.
Gotcha. We're almost done.
Almost done.
Question here. Prior to the pandemic, you had 4 pillars that you were working on. We've talked about 2 of them, crime and workforce. Can you provide an update on the other 2, which were health of our citizens and neighborhood improvement, and how the city addresses affordable housing?
Yeah, you know, and actually those are 2 of the areas that I'm most proud of, because despite the challenges created by the pandemic, by the labor shortage, by social unrest, all of these things that hit us one after another, despite all that, we've really made some progress in those areas. With the very first State of the City I did, we committed $1 million to blight removal, to taking down some of these areas that were creating crime opportunities. I think it creates everything from poverty to low test scores, because the way we viewed it with those 4 pillars is that there are a lot of different buckets that pour into and draw out of poverty. To attack poverty in and of itself, I mean, that's like fighting an elephant with a pea shooter. So what we decided to do was start nibbling away at some of these peripheral issues that we knew impacted poverty. So I can tell you that the next year when COVID hit and we were very careful and very conservative with our budgeting, we still kept $250,000 in the blight removal and neighborhood improvement. The third budget we put in, we put $1 million back in. We are now caught up with the backlog of properties that needed to be addressed. But we still put in another $450,000 this year because that's what our codes and inspection folks anticipated would be needed. So we're very serious about trying to help people reclaim their neighborhoods by trying to rid it of some of this blight. There's no way a kid can feel good about where he lives if he walks by just this old burned out trailer park, 3 times a day. So the other piece on the health, we got that idea when we saw a presentation. I can't remember who made it. I think it was the Department of Public Health. Anyway, they showed a map that showed the highest rates of diabetes, the highest rates of heart disease, and then they overlaid it with a map with the highest levels of poverty. It was almost exact. And then when we dug a little deeper and we overlaid it with a map of the highest crime incidents, it matched again. So it may sound strange for a mayor to go after trying to make a city healthier, but I became convinced that if we could impact the opportunities for some of our poorer residents to have access to things like medical care, to quality foods, that we would see a shift in some of that. So we're rolling out this summer a partnership with a number of people through the Mayor's Health Commission. And Dr. Stephen Leichter and Phil Schuler have done an incredible job with that. But we're going to roll out mobile units. There'll be a mobile health screening unit. We're leveraging Piedmont and Department of Public Health. They both have those vans to not only do those screenings, but maybe to develop a database so that they could help those folks manage some of those chronic illnesses before they end up going to a real serious event that we pay for with our indigent care. And then we've partnered with another incredible organization, UGRO and Food Mill. They're going to have a mobile farmers market where they can make sure that vegetables are available to people that are currently getting all 3 meals a day out of a potato chip bag. And then the third vehicle is going to be ours. We've ordered it. It hasn't arrived yet. Tired of saying supply chain issues, but Parks and Recreation. One of the things we hear is that we need more neighborhood recreation centers. Well, with 176 openings, we can find the center, but we can't find programmers. So this will enable us to put a programmer on this vehicle and take basketball goals, soccer goals, and other recreational stuff for kids to get involved with. And we can go do programming at the neighborhood level. So we're really excited about this summer when the kids are out of school, beginning that program and getting out to some of these folks and trying to make a difference in what their availability to some of this stuff is.
Good. My final question.
Final question.
What is your vision for Columbus?
You know, our vision for Columbus really hasn't wavered. I love this city. I mean, I told y'all that the very first one of these I did. I was born here. I love this place because I love the people in it. And I'm so impressed every day with the citizens of this community and what they mean. So our vision for Columbus is quite simply to try to make an economically viable community that provides opportunities for everybody, regardless of where they live in the city. And we take that very seriously. The city staff, city government, the mayor, the council, we try, even if it's not in their district, they're paying attention and they're trying to get to all these different areas. But we are this year and moving forward, we're focused on a couple of things that we mentioned early, but still desperately need attention. We're focusing on the crime issue. We're focusing on building up our law enforcement folks to make sure we've got enough folks to stay safe while they keep you safe. We're focusing on jobs. We really do believe, I believe, that Columbus, and I think some of it was propelled forward when we got declared what we've always claimed, and that is that we're the second largest city in Georgia. Yeah. I mean, you let that sink in. We've always said that, but now we have statistical proof because of the census. And we should take our rightful place. City manager says this all the time. We should take our rightful place as the second largest city in Georgia. And the way we do that is we prepare for the growth, because the growth is coming. We grew this last census. So what we've got to do is make sure that there are good paying jobs available and that there are work skill training opportunities available. I got to add one more thing. We put, to try to get to that point, we put in 14 kiosks in many of our rec centers and some of our other city buildings, and they're designed to give people who may not have access to computers a touch screen that they can go in there and identify work, job skill training, work opportunities, submit an application online. They can even get information on food banks. So we're focused on providing accessibility to everybody to try to build the kind of life that they want to live.
Sure. Well, Mayor, it's been a pleasure, and I can't say how much the Chamber, the community, appreciate your devoted service to public service, and for many, many years. I don't know how many years, but I'm sure your wife knows and your family knows, but we appreciate all the work that you're doing on behalf of Columbus and the citizens around. So,
well, that's a pleasure.
So that's the end for me.
Well, good day.
I would like to say before I leave, I'd like to call Brian Solito up to talk a little bit about just some partnerships and engagement. So, Brian.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Round of applause. I certainly want to thank the mayor for his years of service to the citizens of Columbus, Georgia. I also want to thank our sponsors one more time that helped make the 2022 Mayor's State of the City possible. Of course, our presenting sponsor, Page Scranum. Thank you, Carter, and the bevy of attorneys from Page Scranum who have joined us here on the front row today. Also, our gold sponsors, AT&T, Georgia Power, and TSYS, a global payments company, and our silver sponsors, Kinetic Credit Union, Liberty Utilities, and Outfront Media. We also want to, of course, always thank and recognize our cornerstone partners, Aflac and Anthem, Georgia Power, iHeartMedia, the Peasold Companies, Piedmont Columbus Regional, PMB Broadcasting, Pratt & Whitney, Synovus, W.C. Bradley Company, and WRBL News 3. And we would be remiss if we did not thank Columbus State University for their partnership on this event. This amazing setup was made possible by Steve Morse and his team and Dr. Markwood. We certainly appreciate this ongoing partnership. And of course, I want to thank our chamber team. I also want to specifically recognize our events coordinator, Chandler Wall, who did a lot of hard work on bringing this to fruition today. So a round of applause for you. Of course, thank all of you who have taken 2 hours out of your day to join us today. I know we'll see some of you at Maple Ridge next Friday, May 6th, at the largest business networking golf tournament in Columbus. And then again on May 24th, mark your calendars for that. We've got Election Day, but also a business after hours planned in partnership with our friends at the East Alabama Chamber. That is actually going to be in the Art Park in Phoenix City, right along the river, and so that'll be a fun time as well. If you haven't already, connect with us on Facebook. We're also on the Instagram. We're not on the TikTok yet, but maybe one day. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks.